Yes, now everyone, welcome back to another video of Predicts here on the Don's Ball Chat YouTube channel. We're up to week 18 of the season now, and this week I've got a very special guest, but we'll get into him a bit later. Last week, let's just check on my scores. I got two absolute shocking week from me, close to a couple of correct results, like even correct score lines, but you know, last minute goals, they change everything, and for me, just wasn't the change I needed. But Josh picked up 8 points for the guest. So the guest lead, they go at the 10 points ahead of me now. I've got a lot of catching up to do over these next 9 or so rounds. I better pick up my game. Hopefully, I can do that against a very special guest in Daniel McBreen.
Big kick in the grand final. McBreen tucks it away, and the Mariners are 2 goals to the good. The Eagles can find a bit of incision. Daniel McBreen! That is one of the goals of every FFA Cup season. It's a back pass, and McBreen has got his second of the evening.
Macca, thanks for joining us on the predictions. How have you found the A-League season so far?
Yeah, don't look at my scores on the tipping competition because they're not so good. I usually do pretty well in these tournaments, in the tipping comps, and this year I'm flailing. I'm about mid-table. I'm scrounging, trying to find a finals berth and get my team together because it hasn't been working for me. So we'll see how we go. It's been an entertaining season, and I think that's pretty shows when, you know, how hard it is to pick each week which team wins.
First game of week 18. It's Brisbane Roar taking on Western United up at Suncorp Stadium. I'll be at this game. Make sure you hang around the channel and wait for the vlog to come out on that one. Should be up around Saturday or Sunday. But this game is a must-win for Brisbane and probably for Western United too. They had that disappointing result, Western United against Victory on Tuesday night. But on Friday night, they had a really good win against Newcastle Jets. They looked good except for that Donachie red card at the end. They've got a fair few injuries and suspensions at the moment, so that might hamper them with this game. I think Brisbane, they've looked really good under Ruben Zadkovic. Last weekend, I just don't think the tactics were completely right in the second half, but I'm going to go for a Brisbane win, and I'm going to go for a 3-0 Brisbane win. First game of the week, it's Brisbane taking on Western United at Suncorp. If Brisbane want to make finals, they're going to have to win this game, right?
Yeah, look, it's a big month coming up, isn't it? The next 3 or 4 weeks for a lot of teams up the top, and Brisbane in particular. They've looked like they might be turning a corner with their win against Melbourne City. Western United, obviously that huge disappointment of losing the game against Victory when they looked like they had it in the bag and maybe was a turning point for them. I think that might be just a little too much for him, the big kick in the guts at the end, and Daniel Pena looks like he might be out after injuring himself celebrating. I think Brisbane are just going to be too good on this one. They're showing signs of moving the ball well. I think it'll be a tight one, but I think they might just get up. And I'm going to say Raw. Let's go 1-0.
Second game of the week is Sydney FC taking on Melbourne City. Melbourne City have dominated this fixture in recent times, but Sydney FC, they're looking really good at the moment. Really young side coming through. It's good to see them finally playing the youth under Ufi Talai, but I think they're just going to have way too much quality for Melbourne City in this one. They haven't looked good, Melbourne City. They reassured their defense last week against Victory, but I just don't think they're going to have enough up top to beat Sydney in this one, especially with that defensive line. Like, Sydney's defense at the moment has been unreal. I'm going to go for a Sydney win, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Sydney win. And the first of the 3 Saturday games is Sydney taking on Melbourne City. Now, we know Melbourne City haven't been themselves this season, but yeah, Sydney have only won twice against Melbourne City in the last 10 games. Does that change this week?
I think it does. I think we're seeing Sydney on the rise. Only 1 loss in 9. Melbourne City, on the other hand, I think it's only 1 win in 6 now. So I just don't think we're seeing the Melbourne City of last year or the last 3 years. And I think Sydney FC are starting to find their groove. You're seeing young players being introduced to the squad. Courtney Perkins has been fantastic. The 2 young boys at the back in Girdwood Reich and Matthews.
Yeah,
Matthews. Hayden Matthews. They're doing really well. Steras are starting to hit form as well, I think. And Gomez, I know he's getting penalties, but he's getting goals and assists. I think Sydney will be too good here, and I'm going to say 2-1.
Next up on the games this week, we have Adelaide taking on the Wanderers down at Cooper's Stadium. It's going to be an absolute cracker. There's been some great fixtures between these two sides in recent times. Earlier on this season, Wanderers got that 1-0 win thanks to that Dylan Pereira's goal. I don't think they're going to be able to go down to Adelaide and get the whole 3 points, but I do think it's going to be a draw in this one. Don't think it's going to be that 4-4 draw that we saw last season, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one. Next up, it's Adelaide taking on the Wanderers down in Adelaide, and obviously last time this fixture was played, it was that crazy 4-4 draw. Do we expect something similar in this one?
Who knows with these two? Look, I just can't pick this one at all. I'm going to say a draw because I cannot. They're so inconsistent. Adelaide have been pretty poor. Western Sydney are up, down, up, down. We know all the dramas they've had with send-offs and their coach being suspended at the moment. I'm going to say a draw, and I'm going to say 2-2 for no other reason that I cannot pick this one at all.
Next up in round 18, we have the distance derby. We have Perth Glory playing host to Wellington Phoenix. Perth Glory, they've been really resurgent in recent weeks. That big win last week over Brisbane Roar, that come from behind when it was really, really good to watch. They've been really attacking. Alan Stage has got that side playing some beautiful football, but you could say the same for Wellington Phoenix. You know, Giacomo Italiano, he's playing some really good football with Wellington Phoenix. The table might suggest that it's a bigger gap than it is, but, you know, I think these teams are a lot closer than it looks. And I'm going to go with Perth with this one. I think they can sneak a win. They're going to have a rocking crowd. I know Pellegri's, you know, he's offered 3,000 tickets to under 16, so I reckon it's going to be a massive turnout. And I'm going to say Perth are going to win this one. I reckon, you know, for Perth, they're always going to score goals, and I'm going to go for a 3-2 Perth win. Next one is the distance derby, and you'd think on considering the ladder, this would be, you know, a one-sided affair, but I don't think that's the case, especially with everything that's happening around Perth at the moment.
Yeah, well, they've hit a rich frame of form, haven't they? I think all the drama that was going on around the club galvanised the players. Now they've had the good news of the Ross Pelligra group coming in and buying the club, so there's some stability there for them. Let's hope that doesn't have a negative effect and take that away. You know, they sort of start to that siege mentality goes away. Let's hope it stays there. I just don't see Perth Glory. I think they're a very good counter-attacking team, and they're when opposition's open. I think Wellington Phoenix, the way they basically sit so many players back and deep, I think what Perth will struggle to score. In saying that, they score about 3 or 4 every week. I just think Wellington Phoenix, they're just a different proposition this year, and I think they'll only get one chance or 1 or 2 chances, and they'll score it, and it'll be a low-scoring victory for the Knicks. I'm going to say 1-0.
First up on Sunday is Newcastle Jets taking on Macarthur. Macarthur obviously have that big game against the Mariners tonight, and I think that's going to play into Newcastle's hands. Newcastle, you know, they've been on a bit of dip of form lately. They showed positive signs earlier on in the season, but lately it just hasn't been clicking for Newcastle. Clayton Taylor, hopefully he's fully recovered from that injury. And if so, I reckon they could win this one, Newcastle Jets. And I'm going to back it. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Newcastle win in this one. And then the first of the 2 Sunday games is Newcastle taking on Macarthur. With the Mariners game for Macarthur midweek, could we see a bit of fatigue and Jets capitalise on that against Macarthur?
Yeah, it's a real good chance that could happen. And because of that, Thursday night game, then a Sunday game, I have a feeling there might be a bit of fatigue there for Macarthur. Newcastle, they've looked good in patches. A very, very young team. They said this week a couple of the players need to start. They said they have to take it on themselves. It's not about Rob Stanton. It's about them now learning they've got enough experience. I actually think this one will probably be a draw, and I'm going to say 1-1.
And finally, for this week, we have Melbourne Victory taking on the Mariners. Same thing goes for the Mariners as it does for Macarthur. There might be a bit of fatigue in this game, and I think that plays into Victory's hands. Although Victory did play twice last week, so, you know, it probably balances out a bit more. But this game, you know, it's only 2 or 3 days after that massive zonal final in the AFC Cup. I think the Mariners can still pip a win in this one, though. Hopefully, for their sake, Angel Torres is back in the squad. But I reckon they can pip a win. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Mariners win. And finally, for this week, we have Melbourne Victory taking on one of your former teams in the Central Coast Mariners. Now, this is the third time these teams have faced this season. The first two were draws. Does someone walk away with 3 points this week?
If it's going to be anyone, it's going to be Victory, because I don't think the Central Coast Mariners, I was looking through the data today, the stats, I don't think they've ever beaten Melbourne Victory at Amy Park in the history of the A-League. They've got a horrendous record down in Victoria. They've only won about 11% of their games with I think a minus 30 goal difference in their games played there. Wow. So I can't see that changing. I also think Victory, with that last gasp win, that last 4 or 5 minutes of football, could change the fortunes or the outlook at the club. It was starting to look a little bleak. No wins in 5 or 6, whatever it was, 5 draws and a loss. And they just feel like a team that maybe have just turned a corner. It took Damien De Silva, a centre-back, to score 2 late goals, but you just felt that weight of all that expectations seemed to maybe just lift off the shoulders a bit. And Daniel Arzani was quality. I've been pretty critical of him this year, but I thought he was class. I think if there's anyone's going to get the points here, it'll be Victory. I'm tempted to say 1-0 Victory, but I actually think it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
Thanks for coming on the predictions, Macca. What have you got going on at the moment? I know you've started your own podcast as well.
Yeah, look, very busy, obviously, doing the commentary stuff with Channel 10 and Paramount. Got an academy with a couple of other ex-players in Newcastle. We've got about 140 kids that we give sessions to in the mornings. Started a podcast with Robbie Thompson. We thought we wanted to talk about the actual football on the field, where we think there's a lot of talk around the stuff that goes around football, but we want to talk about what's going on the pitch, because it's been very entertaining football this last couple of years, and I think it's worth talking about. The players are doing their bit, so let's get on there and have a chat about them. But apart from that, mate, it's a couple of kids, looking after them, and they're keeping me busy.
No worries. Thanks for hopping on, Macca.
No worries. Thanks, mate.
Once again, a massive thank you for Daniel McBreen for hopping on this episode of Predicts. I'll leave a link to his and Robbie Thompson's podcast down in the description. A-League Off Air gives a bit of that commentator perspective that, you don't get with a lot of podcasts, especially with a lot of leagues, and, a bit more analytical than, say, learning A-Leagues. And on that note, if you're not aware, I have started an NPL Queensland podcast as well, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description. Bit of a learning NPL style podcast, but thank you all for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Predicts videos, and until next time, I'll see you soon.